Hello, lovely humans. It's so lovely to see you. Happy 2025. What an absolute pleasure. Um, that is like that your chat feature has already made my day. So thank you all so much for turning up and being so lovely. Hello, Hannah Silverstein. Welcome back. Hey, Nicole. And hello, everyone saying hello in the chat feature right now. If you haven't already, do pop in the chat feature where you're watching from. If you haven't already, make sure to switch your messages so everyone can see your messages. So the way you do that is you head into your chat feature. You'll see presently if there's a toggle there that says two hosts and panelists, and you want to switch it over to everyone, then everyone can see your messages. And once you've done that, then do say where you're watching from, as I can see so many of you have already. Uh, the enthusiasm knows no bounds, which is just so fabulous. Thank you. It means the absolute world. I want to read out the names, but they're going too quick. So let's first say hello to Abby. So Abby is our speaker today. Her LinkedIn is linked in the QR code right there. Now, we've been trying to get Abby involved in the marketing meetup for ages, not through lack of any of Abby's enthusiasm, just about finding the right gap, the right time to bring her along. And this felt like the right moment because we've entered this new year, and you know, it's so easy to sort of, despite my enthusiasm today, sort of get caught up in these big ideas that you need to change your world and do all these things. But for a lot of us, the reality is quite different. That day to day, we just want to sort of get through the next day and keep on going in a very sincere way and happy way most of the time. So that's what this new season is all about. It's about creating some sustainability, some healthy habits, these opportunities to hopefully be a bit more sustainable in our life. And Abby is a wonderful human who I admire, who has some thoughts and is here to share them today. Thank you, by the way, for everyone popping in already. Sean, I'm glad your sound has been sorted. Chanel, hey from Sweden. You got Snow, we've got Bagel, who's fabulous and been such a journey in London over these past year. Estelle in Cape Town, Oliver in Birmingham, we've got folks in Leicester, Suffolk, etc. Dublin. It just keeps on going. So thank you all so much. Before we get going with today's session, I want to say a big thank you to this week's featured sponsor, who are Frontify. Now, we got in touch with Frontify last week and sort of said, hey, what do you want to tell the community about? And I've got to give you a little bit of a secret in that they are just the nicest people. There's a person called Annika who works there, who does a phenomenal job. And they're like, well, we're going to be giving a bunch to the community this year, but at the moment, we just need to tell them that it's coming. So Frontify are a damn solution. They help you bring all your brand assets into a single place. They make your job as a marketer easier. And over the next year, we're going to be giving you a bunch of stuff from Frontify, which will hopefully help. And they're starting off with that spirit. So do take the time to check them out. Also, a big thank you to Frontify, Storyblock, Cambridge Marketing College, Planable, Redgate, and Score App. If we didn't have our sponsors, then we won't be able to bring these sessions to you. So they're simply amazing human beings. And with all that said, I'm getting slightly breathless because I think I've got a bit enthusiastic. Abby, it's now over to you, but a big thank you to everyone in the chat for just being absolutely unbelievable. Let's go.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone. And as Joe said, it always comes with a lot of pressure to think about what your new goals are for the year ahead. And so I just want to say that I actually personally don't set my goals till February. I always give myself the month of January as a break to allow me to percolate and reflect on the things I've done in the year gone by before I set. But today I'm here to kick off the year by talking to you about the 5 steps to a successful, but most importantly, in my opinion, fulfilling career. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about me on paper before I talk to you about me in soul. And I talk to me about me in soul because soul is so important. Our personal understanding is so important when we really think about what it is that we want from our lives and our careers as a whole. So I'm an award-winning marketing consultant. I have been training marketers for 17 years now. Also an accredited capability consultant. I'm also a coach. So a lot of what I talk to you about today are some reflective questions or some coaching principles. I'm a columnist for Marketing Week. And most of you will probably know me as the author and podcast host of The Whole Marketer. So, what about me in soul, though? Because that's me on paper. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my purpose. And my purpose is to help marketers to grow. I'm looking at the thing that I am passionate about with the thing that I'm really good at. So, training and coaching and empowering, and coupling that with the thing that I really want to bring to the world, my values around helping others, generosity, growth, connection. And I'm going to talk today quite a lot about your values and the role that they can play in not only setting your goals, but also in allowing you to get that level of fulfillment that you need to thrive in our challenging yet rewarding profession. As I said, I'm passionate about marketing. I'm passionate about marketing being the change makers. I really want us to feel that we can stand in our own, have the power to lead that long-term commercial agenda of the brands and businesses we work for. A lot of the work I do is about making sure that you feel both supported and empowered in this challenging yet rewarding profession. And why? Because I want you to have successful and fulfilling careers and life as a whole. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, in summary, today we are talking about 5 steps that you can take today, from today, in order to have a successful and fulfilling career. So, number one, develop yourself holistically. And this is where the whole marketer concept comes from. This is taken from me as a trainer, knowing what those technical skills are, the mindset and beliefs that I see of the marketers that really accelerate and really thrive in today's challenging yet rewarding profession, but also acknowledging the shift that we've made as a profession, which is, we've moved from a support function to one leading the long-term commercial agenda, or for many of us still on that journey. But it's not just the what we do, it's the how we do it and the why we do it. So the how, those soft skills, or as I say, the human skills, the leadership skills. So to lead that long-term commercial agenda, to lead the marketers in our care, to lead authentically, to have the soft skills, to have the curiosity, to have the resilience, to have the drive and can-do attitude to make plans happen, but also to harness the stakeholders and the communications that's happening in the organization. And then, last but by no means least, the most important element is, I believe, the personal understanding. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. The what, the how, and the why. And what I'll also say is, what I also love about our profession is it's ever evolving, ever changing. And so it's not always about having the core skills, the technical skills to lead the long-term commercial agenda, to write the strategy, to make the strategic choices, to write your tactical plan, to set your KPIs on ROI, to have the actionable insight to make all of those things happen. It is about also evolving and keeping abreast of the changes. So, tip number one is think about how I'm going to develop myself holistically. Do I have the technical skills, the soft skills, the leadership skills in order to achieve the future goal or the current goal that I want to have? Am I thinking about myself holistically in my development, and am I setting goals around that? And I've just noticed that I've got a little typo there where I've written community, and that's, a mistake on purpose, because almost that was the thing that's just started changing. We've just started talking about how we can get insight from communities. I thought I'd better update my slide, and I've updated it so quickly that I've actually spelt it incorrectly. So there you go. That's how quickly, as a marketing profession, we are changing and evolving. So that's number one. Number two is, as I said, the most important thing is our personal understanding. It's the thing that separates, as I always see, from all the thousands of marketers that I've trained over the years and all the marketers that I've worked with, that separates for the best from the rest. We have always worked with someone that is really technically great at their job, but they can't get anyone to buy into their plan. They haven't got the necessarily the human skills to be able to connect and get stakeholders bought into the idea, and they can't drive the motivation behind others behind that idea and making things happen. And that's why it's so important that really need to build our personal understanding. So when I talk about personal understanding, what am I talking about? Now, self-awareness. Self-awareness for me is what we are like to be around. And I think most of us have probably done some sort of personality profiling test, whether that's a Myers-Briggs, whether that's a DISC, whether that's an insight or color wheel, drop in the chat box if you've done one of those many, many things. And for me, they are really important. But for me, they are only the first layer of the onion. Okay. Yeah, ESFJ there. Thank you, Rachel. A bit of Myers-Briggs. Yeah, we've all got the one that we've done, right? Or the multiple ones that we've done. But for me, they are very much, if you think about an onion, the layer, whether you are a brown onion, a red onion, a white onion, a shallot, they're very much the thing what you are like to be around. They're great because they give us a common language. They allow us to understand people potentially that we work with and the ways in which we should communicate with them, but they are very much a starter for 10. I always give the analogy that it's like dividing the whole population into a box of one of 16, because most of these have a 4 by 4 grid concept. So great for that first layer of the onion, what we're like to be around, but really it's for us to go deeper. And so here's the things that I want you to go deeper with. I want you to also identify, if you haven't done so already, what your strengths are and what your strengths are that you enjoy. Not the same as a talent. A talent is a thing that you are naturally good at. You have absolutely no reason why that you are good at it. But it is something you're also good at. So the thing that you are good at naturally and you don't know why, for me, it's about being really great on a grabber machine at the arcade. I have absolutely no idea why, but I absolutely a queen at it. Versus a strength, which is something that I have learned and developed over time, and also something that I enjoy. And the reason I use the word enjoy is because, as we come on to later, the benefit of having your personal understanding is in order to build our resilience, to think about our well-being, and to think about having the energy that we need to do the jobs and for life as a whole. Doing things that give us energy, i.e., things that play to our strengths, is really important. The other thing is to not only identify these, but to own these. So for people that have imposter syndrome or that suffer, or as I like to say, suffer is a bit of a strong word, that also experience comparisonitis, when you start comparing yourself to others, it's usually because we've not connected to the thing that is ownable to us. I have something on my desk here that I look at every day, and it says, by being yourself, you put something wonderful that wasn't in the world before. And once we really connect with that thing that we bring to the world that wasn't there before, I find that comparisonitis and that imposter syndrome starts to lessen, because it's less about what you're doing versus or what somebody else is thinking about what you're doing. It's about you connecting the thing that you know that you uniquely are good at, and worry slightly less about the things that you're not good at yet. The next thing, or the next layer of the onion, is your values. And for me, having learnt my values is what actually fueled me to want to come and train to become a coach. So, your values are the things that you hold of high importance in your life. They're the things that you deem of high importance, and that when you're doing something that plays to your values, it will fill up your cup. When you're doing something that doesn't align with your values, it will take away some of that energy from you. It will drain you. And defining your values so that you know what motivates you is really important. But also so that you understand, use that understanding in order to define your goals, to set your vision, to define the right role, to think about the type of leader you could be. There are so many different applications for the usage of values. And for those that haven't learnt their values yet, there is actually a workbook on the Whole Marketer website that you can go and use and download to define them yourselves. The next is about what drives and motivates you. And drives, when I say drives, I also mean drivers. Drivers. So we have a whole host of drivers, from people pleaser to try harder to perfectionist. All of those drivers, they are built from our subconscious and experience that we've had particularly during our childhood. And it's not to say that they are good or bad, it's about understanding what does drive you so that you can understand the impact that they may have on you on a day-to-day basis, and the way in which you show up in the world and the way in which you work. And it's also really important to define what motivates you. Like, what do you need in order to be motivated? I'm going to talk a lot more about this as we go on this afternoon, because the basis of those elements of understanding also are the things that we need to reflect in and plan against, to make sure that we are building our resilience levels up and making sure that we're purposeful and intentful with what we're doing to build our well-being. So having defined those things, it's like, well, how do we use that personal understanding to define our purpose, to set our vision, and to set our goals? And I'll give you some tools in a minute about how to do each of those things. So, why is that so important? For me, fulfillment lies when we are doing things that play to our values and when we are edging closer to our goals. Doing those little small incremental movements every single day that are edging us closer to our goals. But in order to get that fulfillment, we need to be able to set our goals and also to make them emotionally attached to us. We need to make sure that we are also building values, goals that are based on our values or something that we are emotionally excited about. So once we have that understanding, that can give us the energy and help build our resilience in many ways. The first thing is that when we are doing something that plays to our strengths, we get energy. We get a dopamine hit, we get a stroke, we get something that uplifts us. So when we're doing something that plays to our strengths that we enjoy, we get energy. When we are doing something that plays to our values, it's filling up our cup. And when we are doing things that edge us closer to our goals, we are getting that level of fulfillment. Now, doing all of those things will allow us to have the energy and the resilience to thrive in our challenging yet rewarding profession, but also to have the energy to achieve those goals that we want to achieve. And not forgetting well-being. Energy comes not only from doing things that play to our strengths, it also comes from sleep, which Joe and I were talking about before this call, which is very important to me, as is eating the right things. And that's not for me to sit here and lecture on those things. That's not my area of expertise. But it is really important to think about the things that give you energy and make sure that you are listing those out. They become non-negotiables and that you are communicating those needs and setting boundaries around them. I have here actually my list of my energy non-negotiables. And I would encourage everyone to have a list or at least think about what it is that you need. And for me, sleep's on the list, time alone is on the list, monthly trips to Cornwall are on the list, walking 3 times a week is on the list, making sure that I connect with a friend, because one of my values is connection at least once a week. It's making sure that I at least go to the gym once a week. I don't really like the gym, but it is important for my well-being, as is those daily walks of perspective. Okay. What are those things that are important to you? What they're prioritized, and how do you make sure that you set boundaries and communicate them to others as well, because they become your non-negotiables. The next is future focus. There is a saying that we can deal with anything in the here and now as long as we know where we're going. And that's why setting your vision is so important. So that setback, that stress inducing thing, that thing that's not going quite to plan, if we know where we are heading, we are much more able to deal with the here and now. The next that's really important to maintaining our well-being is our inner drive. So what is our purpose? Why are we getting out of bed every morning? What's the thing that we are working towards? And the last, but by no means least, are strong relationships. I heard an analogy recently given by, I think it was Simon Sinek, and he talked about who are your 7-minute people? Who are your 7 minutes that you could message them and say, have you got 7 minutes? And they would know that that's code for you need to rant, you need to vent, you need some perspective, you need a sounding board, you need some empathy, you need someone to resonate with you, you need someone to tell you you're not going crazy. Who are your 7-minute people? And it's really important that we make sure that we have all of those things in place at any one time to maintain our well-being. Just going to stop and look at the chat. Why We Sleep, yeah, great book. This
Sorry,
too shall pass.
I've been
Yeah,
I've been publicly venting around my sleep, so sorry about that, Abby.
not at all. And I love a nap, as we were talking about before. I love a nap, and for me, if I have had a deep thinking morning or a very busy morning, I love a process nap. Absolutely love that. Now, I know that the series has also been set up by Joe to look at burnout. And I'm also someone very passionate about addressing the rising cases of burnout in the profession. Why? Well, because I actually suffered from burnout, and it is not something that I would wish on anyone. True burnout, and I use the word true because I think a lot of people started using the terminology, go, I'm burning out, which is obviously you're on the way to burn out. But true burnout is basically your body stops because you have not said, but your body says no because you've not said no. Okay. True burnout is exhaustion. You can't get out of bed. You can't think about work. You can't do the thing that you need to do. Okay. And so I went off and did some research. Went and spoke to specialists, went and spoke to a doctor in the area. I interviewed lots of marketers as part of my podcast series. And these are the themes that I personally identified that are the drivers for burnout. The first was a period of prolonged stress. So that prolonged stress could be work related, it could be life related. It doesn't matter. It means that for a period of time, your cortisol is high, your fight is high, you are in a period of prolonged stress. And it can be work, it can be life, it can be a combination of those things. And the other was those that were more particularly prone to burning out. Those drivers that I mentioned earlier had a people pleaser driver, a perfection driver, or a be strong driver. So they weren't asking for help naturally. They were really concerned about what other people thought. And they were also always striving for perfection. Now, that's not to say those are the wrong drivers to have. It's just being mindful that if you do have those drivers, that you are going to be more likely to burn out. Now, before today's webinar, I thought to myself, well, if I was to do another formula, what would be the thing to not burn out but to thrive? And for me, it's making sure that if you are experiencing prolonged stress and you know that you have those drivers that make you more prone to burnout, that you put even more of a focus on your well-being and doing things that play to your values and give you energy to offset that potential burnout and to make sure that we are thriving, not just surviving. So, number one, develop yourself holistically. Think about your technical, your soft skills, your leadership, your personal understanding. Two, really deep dive into your personal understanding. What is it that you need? What gives you energy? What do you value? What's of high importance? What motivates you? And use that understanding to not only do those things that give you energy, but also make sure that you use that understanding to set priorities about the things that you need and the boundaries around them. So number three, let's get clear. So in order to set those goals, personally, there's many different ways in which people set goals, but for me, I start with a vision. What is it I want for my life as a whole? And I'll come on to how I do that in a second. I then set smart goals. I wouldn't be a marketer if I didn't have a smart goal in here somewhere. Okay. So, of that vision, what are the things that I want to achieve for that year? And therefore, what does that look like as a smart movement in year? I also, how can we use that understanding to get really clear on what that future career goal is as well, and defining your ideal role? And for me, it's not about chasing the job title. It's about making sure that the role has the right content in it for you to feel fulfilled. And I'll talk about that in a second. And then the other is to get really clear, just as we do as marketers, we set a vision, we set strategic objectives, we look at those goals that we need to achieve, and then we start planning. We start phasing in the year the things that we need to make those things a reality. I can see the chat box is exploding, so I'm just going to have a quick look here.
We
Yeah.
just to annotate while you're speaking through that, just a really lovely interaction between Sarah, Helen, Jess, and my heart was just really warmed there in the chat feature with you all sort of really supporting each other. So as much as Abby may describe it in a moment, I just want to say thank you, because this is what it's all about, and I don't want to let that ever go unnoticed. I'll shut up now, but back over to you, Abby.
Thank you. I can't wait to read that in a sec. The first is I'll start with a vision, and everyone can do vision boards in different ways, but this is just one that was actually done by someone I've coached. And what I loved about it was that the values was heart and center of her vision board. So she took a value, she knows what's a deep important, what are the things that I want to do against that, and then visually brought that to life. And why visually is so important is that we have a part of our brain called the RAS, the reticulating activating system. And that part of our brain actually filters based on images of things that we've seen. It's the reason why when you're looking for a new car, all you can see is cars on the road. Okay. The second the brain thinks that you need something, it will start filtering all the things that we see every single day to the things that are important to us. So by having that clarity visually of what it is that you're trying to achieve, we can then start to set goals. Now, personally, I set a vision board. Some people do this digitally, some people cut magazines out. But for me, it's really important that it has a representation or a visual representation of all the things that you want to do. So this one here talks about her family, how she wants to express herself. There was a want to write a book there for children, the time that she wants to make sure she's spending doing dance, all of those things. For me personally, now my vision board has a combination of things that I want to achieve on my bucket list, experiences I want to have, where I'd like to take the whole marketer, things I'd like to do with my boys. It has, things I need and to underpin. So some of those energy non-negotiables. So it has going to the gym once a week and feeling strong. It really reflects the life that you want to live as a whole. The next is the purpose. Now, there are many ways in which you can set your purpose, but this is personally how I set mine. Values, so those things that we deem of high importance, as I mentioned earlier, mine are generosity, helping others, connection, growth, and and honesty. Almost forgot my fifth value then. Honesty. I then look at the things that I am passionate about, the causes that I am passionate about. So let's say my passion is very much about helping the marketing profession. I look at the things that I am skilled at. So I'm skilled at training, I'm skilled at marketing expertise, I'm skilled at knowing the skills that marketers need. But also, what are my talents? I'd like to think that I'm very good at connecting with others. Okay. Something that comes quite natural to me. And if you combine those things, it's not surprising that my purpose is about how can I help others to grow, how can I help marketers to grow, and the way in which I do that is the whole marketer proposition. Now, I'm sure some of you listening to that saying, well, you have your own business or brand that you have started, and that makes it easier. Yes, it does make it easier, but that's not to say that you can't set your own purpose with your passions, the things that you want to get involved with and help with, utilizing your skills and your talents, and giving you something that you feel motivated about to get out of bed for every single morning. Where do goals come from? So goals to me come from that vision board, something that you've wanted to achieve for your life as a whole. They come from doing things that play to your values. Sometimes they just come from a bucket list item, something you've always wanted to achieve. Um, Not a marathon for me. I mean, I wouldn't run anywhere unless I was in danger. But I mean, I've done that joke before, so Joe's like, yeah, I've heard you say that before. But what is on your bucket list? That place that you want to experience, that thing that you want to achieve, that thing that you wanted to do, or just a feeling from within. People who know me well know I spend a lot of time in Cornwall. And I spent a lot of time in Cornwall because I had a moment where I had a feeling that I knew I needed to be there more. And so therefore I followed that feeling and thought, so how do I make that happen? Okay. It can happen from any area of your life. And so, yes, I think it's important that we talk about career goals and ideal roles, which I'll come on to in a second, but also anything that you do, um, any goal that you start working towards is going to aid your fulfillment. So please do make sure that you're doing this for your whole life as a whole. The next is defining the ideal role. Now, I have a lot of people that come to me and say, Abby, I'm looking for my next role. And I say, what are you looking for? And they'll say, oh, I'm looking for a marketing director or a head of marketing role. And I always send them away with these following questions because for me, that's a job title. And I know a lot of us want to feel like you've achieved a certain level in your marketing career. And by all means, that's absolutely fine to have that as a goal. But I think it's really important to also think about what that role includes because we're looking here to have a role that fulfills us. And therefore, it needs to fulfill us on many levels. The first one, it needs to have personal alignment. So it needs to work with your life as a whole. And your life as a whole is the way in which you work, your work style, your work patterns, where you work, how you work, your remuneration, all of those things that make sure that it fits for your life as a whole. The next is to have that personal fulfillment. So when we are doing a role that either plays to our values or we're working for an organization that plays to our values, we're going to have also the element of personal fulfillment. And then we also need to think about career goals and role development. We know that we need to do things that play to our strengths, the thing that we enjoy, because that's going to give us the dopamine hits and give us the fulfillment in the day-to-day role. But also think about the things that you want to also learn. What's the role development? What's the breadcrumbing? What are the things that you've seen, that you've heard, that you've tried, that you've experienced, that you've seen somewhere else in a different part of the business or in other organizations that you also want to learn? Okay, so we want to have a role that includes the things that we enjoy, things that we want to learn, and working for an organization that aligns to our values and to our purpose, and something that works for our life as a whole. And there are a whole series of questions that allow you to kind of get that real clarity. And once again, there's a workbook on the website that you can go through and answer those questions, but really encouraging you to make sure that you are not only just looking at the job title, but what that role includes, because that's absolutely key to having that fulfillment. Number 4, take the reins on making it happen. So we've spoke about getting clear on where you want to get to for your life as a whole, what the goals are that you want to achieve, thinking about not only that personally, but also professionally, and then really thinking about how you start making that happen. So what do I mean about taking the reins? For me, it's about a career that's happening for you, not to you. You are in control of where you go next. You are being proactive in mapping your journey. You are thinking about what this role currently provides you, the opportunity for, what you'd like the next role to provide the opportunity for. You're really mapping those steps. I think a lot of us, and I'll put my hand up included, often may get offered another role, or a role comes to us from a headhunter or something that we've seen that we want to apply for. And that's not to say that that process is wrong, but we do want to make sure that we are in control of those moves that we make, and they're not just happening to us. So, in order to do that, we need to make sure that we can plan and make that a reality. So, we know what our vision is, we know what that ideal role is. What is the key milestones to make that a reality? Is there a certain project that you might need to work on? Is there a certain training course that you want to be part of? Is there exposure to something that you need to acquire? And trying to apply some timings behind that. A really good example of a marketer that is owning this is the one that is really proactive in closing some of those knowledge gaps that they don't have. So not close some of the knowledge gaps that they have. The one that says, "Oh, I'm waiting for when the next training program comes out in my organization," versus the one that says, "Right, I don't know about financial commercial acumen, so I'm going to buy a book, join a webinar, job shadow somebody in my organization that is responsible for commercial finance and see how they do it." So it's really about taking action and being proactive in the things that you do in order to achieve that. So, and also not just putting those milestones about behind when, but also the things that you're going to need to do. So, as I said there, is it projects that you can be part of? Are there certain things that you need to gain experience in? And it doesn't always have to be in role, it can be outside the organization. Um, are there asks of help? I'm a massive believer in the ask of help. As I said earlier, I always believe that what we put into the world, is really unique. So therefore, there's someone else out there that knows something that you don't know. How can you ask for help? Whether that's from a mentor, someone who's done the thing that you want to achieve, about how they got there, what advice they'd give you. Whether that's a teacher who knows how to do the thing that you don't know how to do yet, that's going to help you close that gap. Whether that's a coach, someone that's going to give you the questioning to arrive at the answer yourself, or whether that's an accountability buddy, someone that's going to hold you to account to make sure that you are making movements and edging closer to those goals. Now, I personally have all of those things at any one time. So it is about being proactive and asking for someone to mentor you, find out the gaps that you need, look at who can help you close them, make sure you've got the support in place. And the accountability buddy thing that I do is, simply really simple, that someone is really clear on my goals. And every Saturday by lunchtime, I text them the thing that I have done that week that's edged me closer to my goals. It just holds me to account. It makes sure that I remain focused on the things. I get the support that I need and the motivation I need to keep going. Training, you know, the power of yet. So how do we learn the thing that we need to learn? And also by sharing your goals with others, you get external commitment and also support. So by sharing the thing that you want to achieve, you're going to be in other people's RAS. They're going to say, "Oh, have you seen that course? Oh, I was over here at the weekend. I saw this book. I think you really love it. That's something that you want to do, isn't it?" It's giving you external commitment, holding you to account, because every time they see you, they're going to say, "How are you getting on with X?" Okay. And then 5. What's really important here is that we don't run at our goals full pelt. And the reason is if we do that, we will overwhelm our brains. So it's really important that we take small, incremental daily movements towards our goals. One of my favorite quotes is a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. In fact, I have it inside a mug that I try and have my morning tea out of every morning. It's like just one step, one step. And it just needs to be simple movements. It could be one podcast you listen to, one email that you send, one phone call that you make, one voice note that you ask, one webinar that you listen to. It could be just one small daily movement that's going to edge you closer to your goals for your life and your career as a whole. The next important thing is that when we start to do things that we've not done before, our brains are designed to keep us safe. So it's only natural that when you start doing something you've not done before, your brain will heighten. It will start to highlight to you that you maybe are in danger, and you will start having feelings of anxiety or fear. That is absolutely completely normal. Okay. What we do need to do is feel that fear. There's a lot of people say feel the fear and do it anyways, but at least acknowledging that fear and thinking about what we're going to do and really embracing the fact that you are on a journey and embracing the power of yet. I don't know how to do that thing yet. Not a fixed mindset was like, I don't know how to do that. Never mind. I'm not doing that. Okay. So it really is important that we embrace that growth mindset and we work with our brains. So as we start edging outside of our comfort zone, things like limiting beliefs, oh, you can't do that, or will start coming up. That's completely normal. Okay. So for those that have experienced that saying, oh, well, I haven't done the thing because limiting beliefs will come up. They are there to keep us safe. Okay. Limiting beliefs are formed when the three things are at place. Someone of authority says something that evokes a strong emotion in a time that we feel susceptible. So if we're in a new role and someone says that you're not able to do a certain thing, a limiting belief will be formed. So it's about acknowledging that, looking where it came from, doing the work to reframe it. The next is when you do start to feel anxious or nervous about the thing that you're doing, like just sit with it. Sit with it for a minute. Okay. Don't run from it. Feel the fear, acknowledge it, thank your brain for bringing your attention to it, but still take the action. Okay, still take the action. And it's also okay to talk out loud to your brain and just say, thank you. I know you're trying to keep me safe, but I am actually safe and I'm going to send that email anyways. Okay. The next is when we're doing things that are hard work or that create effort, we need to celebrate the wins. We need to reward our brain. So whether we want to attach a reward for the goal or the milestone that we're working towards, but we need to do something that says, thank you very much for the hard work. Why? Because then it will want to do it again. Okay, so really embracing how our brains work. And the next is not just always chasing those goals, but time for reflection. Joe and I were talking before we jumped on the webinar today around, I take a quarterly review going, right, they're my goals, just as you would in your day-to-day work going, so how am I doing against them? What's working? What's not working? Stop, start, continue. Really having that time for reflection because it's never the learning, it's the reflection on the learning. And so that we can repeat that or do something differently next time. Um, I'm going to pause in a second for Q&A, but just want to say that if you're going, oh, that's a lot. I want to do all those things, but where do I start? There is lots of support out there for you, particularly on the website, resources from your ideal role, your values, and much, much more. So please, if you want to learn more or take more time to do that, please do use those. And I'll just pause there for questions and look at this chat box now.
It's been so phenomenal, but so have you, Abby. Just absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much for taking us through it. I have a framework brain, so there was a moment like about 15, 20 minutes in there where you started to really connect the different things that you've been through, and my brain went on fire, and I was like, oh my God, she's done a fabulous job here. So honestly, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Folks throughout the chat feature have just been loving it and relating, I think, more than anything. So thank you. And
You're
thank you
welcome.
everyone as well in the chat for continuing to support each other. It's genuinely incredible. We've got 19 minutes for Q&A now. So folks, if you see a chat and a question that's in the Q&A where you're like, I'd love that answered, then give it a thumbs up. Or if you don't see a question that you'd love answered, then be sure to pop it in the Q&A, and I'll try to make sure that we prioritize those things. Um, Abby, I'm hopefully giving you time here to sort of take in
Have a little reflect.
the chat feature as well, because honestly, as a community, you're just absolutely phenomenal. So thank you all so much. Let's um, let's head into the Q&A, and so
Mhm.
I'm just going to take them from the top based on how folks have voted. And so there's quite a wide question here, and I'd like to contrast it against one of the other questions in the Q&A as well, so we do them at the same time. So the first question comes from Lily,
Mhm.
who says, what are your top tips for someone in their first marketing role? And then I'm going to contrast this against Catherine, who says, how do you tackle the problem as being seen as too senior? So Catherine puts a little bit more meat on the bones and says, I'm currently a head of marketing, deliberately trying to get marketing managers or less senior jobs and being told I'm too senior to progress. So like you got two folks at different stages of their career here, but both sort of seeking a similar thing by virtue of being on this webinar, which is that fulfillment,
Mhm.
having a great career, etc., etc.
So I think, what are your top tips for someone in their first marketing role? For me, almost like if I look back over my 25 years, the thing that I wish I'd learnt more was me.
Nice.
Particularly while we're talking about personal understanding today. So getting really clear on what, following the breadcrumbs. What is it about the role that you're currently doing that you really love? What are the things that you are doing that you don't enjoy? What are the things that you want to do more of, and be making sure that you're getting exposure to lots of different aspects that are happening in the organization. So you go, I like that. I call it breadcrumbing. I like that. I want to hear more, requesting to kind of join that meeting, see what's going on, or maybe do some personal learning on that thing outside of work. But it really is about breadcrumbing. So exposure and breadcrumbing, getting really clear on the things that you're enjoying. And not just like, I don't enjoy that. It's, why don't I enjoy that? Why is that draining me? Why is that not enjoyable? But what would the thing that would be more enjoyable that I want to include? So you start crafting your list of strengths and enjoyment back to that kind of ideal role Venn diagram that I've created, that you're banking your strengths and the things that you enjoy and that are giving you dopamine hits, the things that you want to go after, but you're also taking the time to build your personal understanding so you can put your hand up for the work streams that play to your values, or the projects that someone's working on that are not just a learning opportunity, but also a value building opportunity as well.
Love
So
that.
that's
So,
the less senior. The more senior. And as I was reading your post, I think what's quite clear is that you don't want the senior role
yes.
anymore. You want to kind of take a step down. So you've got your personal reasons why you want to do that. I see many senior marketers wanting to do exactly the same, because the higher they get, the more time that they spend in boardrooms, and they are actually working on marketing, the thing they came into marketing to do. And so I was do it feels like there is a lack of understanding between what it is that you're trying to do, and for them, their perception of why you're trying to do that. So
Mhm.
I would say as much transparency as you can about the reasons why you want to do that, what it is that you're looking for in a role, what you've learned having done more senior roles, and why you're looking for this change, whether that's personally or professionally, and really facing into that communication before, kind of even before you apply for that role,
Yeah.
I think is really important. And I've seen a lot of people actually that have taken that step down or two steps down because it's not, as they've gone more senior, it's not the thing they enjoy. And I think it's okay to communicate that.
It's so true. I mean, we can go really, really deep on this, but the way that we handle progression in general is tricky. We can all explore these things that we love doing, and sometimes it is the doing rather than the managing or whatever. There's interesting conversations to be had about how we reward people to continue progressing without necessarily giving them a promotion or making them a manager in different ways, because we're all built so differently. So that feels really great advice, and I love the idea of breadcrumbing as well, Abby. And what I really appreciate is that you did this as part of the talk as well. Is you presented like something which, on the surface level, a lot of people speak about, but you took it one level below and sort of said, "Okay, I've noticed that thing, but why?" And I think that's really crucial, and I really admire that. Just that level of thinking. So thank you very much for encouraging people to think that way. I think that's really, really helpful.
Definitely. If I could just add one thing to that as well, Joe, I think, when we have performance reviews, or we're applying for a new job, or we're getting feedback from someone in an organization that we're working with, don't forget that that feedback is based on their own lived experience.
Mm,
We can only, I always say we can only help others into the extent in which we know ourselves, but they can only lead and give feedback in, to the extent in which that they've experienced themselves.
mhm,
So almost appreciating that that feedback, their perception of your situation is their perception, is not necessarily your reality. And maybe there's a piece of education that needs to happen there around their assumptions about why you're doing that thing.
mm. I love that. And does that relate to the, would you say, and maybe this is a completely incorrect thing to say, and so, no is a very good answer as well. But there was a lot of chat in the webinar chat here about people relating to the idea of being people pleasers and stuff like that. And I think based on what you've just said, there could be a tendency for folks to kind of receive information from a manager or something like that. And because they want to please, they don't necessarily do that additional layer of thinking where they're like, oh, wait, their context could be different rather than, like, I would like to please this person. So I don't know whether there's a tendency within marketers to be people pleasers because our roles are fundamentally about people. Um, but yeah, it's just an
Yeah, I
interesting.
mean, I'm actually when we talk about drivers, so my personal drivers are hurry up
Mhm.
and people please. So I have a hard
Yeah.
relate with anyone that people pleases. And I think with any of your drivers, you're right. As marketers, we are here to identify and satisfy, the wants and needs of consumers profitably, and we are there to make sure that they are happy and we are meeting their needs.
Mm,
Definitely. So you potentially have got maybe marketers maybe more prone to have that people pleaser driver. But I think it's also really important to do, as you say, to go down a level. So it's like, so if I am people pleasing and I am saying yes and I'm not saying no, and I am ruminating as I often do about the thing that I said or how someone might be thinking about me, it's like, well, why?
yeah.
What is the thing that you're worried that you will get or that you will lose from that action?
Mhm.
I think on to build onto your point about feedback, it's also up to you what you take and what you don't take
Nice.
from feedback. And yes, we want to make sure that, potentially a line manager or someone that is perceived as potentially a decision maker in your future progression,
Mhm.
or, their opinion is really, really important internally, that we want to do that thing. But that's still your choice whether you do it or not.
Mm, and it's so important. It's so hard to do, but if you can nail it as a skill, then it's absolutely wonderful. I fully agree. Wonderful, Abby. Thank you. Let's
Yeah.
take the next question,
Yeah.
who comes from Anonymous. In the time that we've been chatting there about two questions, then another 10 have been added. So, so we've done well. Um, so this one comes from Anonymous, and I'm going to make an assumption here, which is there's been a series of anonymous questions coming around the same time. So I'd really like to help this person because
Mhm.
I suspect. So the anonymous attendee says, I don't know what job I'm looking for. I'm currently in a marketing coordinator role at a small business and constantly feel like I want something more. But how do I know what I want? I can't think of any passions or things that I would love to do. And I guess while you're thinking there, because it's always hard to have questions just thrown at you, like I can
Mm.
relate to that experience in that sometimes it's quite hard to know a world you don't know exists, and so if you don't know what the opportunities are out there or what passions you can follow, etc., coming up with a vision, for example, can be quite difficult. And so for someone in this situation who is just, it feels like is stuck a little bit, how would you start to approach these kind of conversations at the very least?
So I would start to think about what are all the key elements that make up a marketer's role
Mhm.
technically, and
Okay.
start to think about which of those things am I doing, do I enjoy, or do I need to understand more about?
Mhm.
So if we talk about the ability to set vision and write
Mhm.
strategy, if we talk about activating in the year, if we talk about insight or KPIs, effectiveness, ROI, like we literally go through all the core skills, then starting to think about what am I doing that plays to those? What have I enjoyed? What have I not enjoyed? What do I need to learn more about? And doing an audit against that would be a really great place to start.
Nice.
Because to your point, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes by um, thinking about all the other elements as well, there might be a breadcrumb that we want to follow or something that we want to kind of explore more. And people often say, I mean, those technical skills are outlined, the core technical skills, I would say, are outlined in my book,
Mhm.
and are also on another resource on the website. But I would also um, also take the time to think about not only what you have and haven't done, but also other roles. Sometimes looking at a job description or shadowing somebody else for the day can give you exposure to something that they're doing that you go, oh, I quite like the look of that.
Mhm.
And I know for me personally, I absolutely am a strategy geek, like sorry, not sorry. But that only happened because I was working in activation. And then I was like, that's quite interesting. Oh, I quite like the structure, a bit like you, Joe. And then I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm going to buy a book on strategy. And then I fell in love.
Nice.
That was 5 steps before I got there. So it's also okay to be accept the unknowing at the moment and just keep listening and listening to yourself.
I love that. Thank you. And that last sentence, I guess, relates to curiosity to a certain extent, although that can
Definitely.
sometimes be, it's a really wonderful trait, but also one that people say, be curious. And like, when you're in a not a strong place, sometimes that can be quite tricky. So, exactly to your point, just allowing yourself, allowing yourself the process and stuff like that, is so important. So thank you, Abby, for speaking through that. I just also wanted to highlight when you mentioned there about looking at other job descriptions. There was an exercise which I think is a build on from what you were speaking about there, but Helen Tupper spoke about this, where you'd go through 5 or 6 or
Mhm.
7 or 8 job descriptions, and you just put a green tick next to things that piqued your curiosity,
Mhm.
and that is a way of structuring the exercise, I guess, that you suggested, but Helen has also built on in a different way, which would hopefully be useful.
Amazing.
Um, let's take the next one from Sarah. So you mentioned in the talk, and I wrote it down. I wrote it down on my phone. So if I was looking down at any point, it's because I was taking notes. I promise. And you used the term um, a be strong driver, and I found that really fascinating. And I don't think I've heard many people use that phrase before.
Mhm.
And so Sarah in the Q&A here has asked, how would you advise someone who isn't very good at asking for help that you can see on the way to potential burnout to help stop that potential burnout? So in fact, Sarah's done a really generous thing here, which is seeing that in someone else. But I'd also like to add on the additional bit about noticing it in yourself and sort of that be strong driver, because I think that's a really important part that we potentially didn't go particularly deep into in the presentation.
Yeah, so the be strong driver is exactly that. The want to not show how you're truly feeling and not ask for help. And from a gender perspective is actually quite common in males because of historically like, you'd fall over and they'd say, "Oh, you're fine, get up."
Mm.
And it's like, "Well, no, I'm expressing my emotion." And that was kind of so it's quite a common thing to over-index. Historically, obviously gender roles are changing, but in males and but also across all genders. And for someone that's not in fact, I've been coaching someone recently who has a real difficulty with asking for help. And sometimes it's like the the process historically has been they've asked for help and something has happened. And so it's been a negative experience, or they've been rejected, or the help didn't help them, whatever that may be. And so actually starting with small steps of asking for small amounts of help to almost start saying, well, that was a positive experience, see, and then
Yes.
doing it again. So, a big ask for help would be in this person that's heading for burnout, it's like, help, I feel overwhelmed. I don't know, I've got too much on my plate, I feel prolonged stressed. I don't want to tell you that I'm overwhelmed for whatever reason that may be. It's like, so what's the small thing that you could do to help them, whether that's identifying workload, allowing to take something off them, just small offers of help, as well as allowing them to ask for small bits of help. And I always think with burnout, if you're noticing it in someone else, is doing what I call the white sheet of paper exercise. In fact, I've got a book that I buy from Tiger with the big sheets in it. And I just white sheet of paper and just maybe sit and offering them, go like, what are all the things that are going on at the moment? And let them share, think about what's a priority, what's not a priority, and potentially what you could do to help them either reprioritize or take something off them could be that small bit of help for them to see that it's okay.
Love that. That's so helpful. Thank you so much, Abby. Great answer.
Welcome.
I haven't read Charlotte's comment in the chat here, but it looks like it'll be useful as well. So I'm going to point people to that. But thank you, Abby. That's endlessly
Okay.
useful. And Sarah in the chat says, thank you so much with 2 exclamation marks. So I think that's been really helpful as well.
2 thumbs up.
So let's take the next one from Catherine. So Catherine is smashing the questions because those are the top 2 questions that are left, as well as having one answered already. So hopefully this is a message of hope, really. I hope we come to this conclusion. So Catherine says, my experience makes me think that the most well-paid, ambitious roles don't align with my personal values. Are there people out there who believe you can actually be commercially successful and a good person? I am losing faith. So a little bit of a statement as much as anything else, but I believe that you can be a good
Pick
person
one,
and
you
be
go.
commercially successful. Like, do you?
Um, I think you could be a commercial person and be successful. Yes. I also would say, what's their definition of success?
Mm,
So commercially successful, i.e., they're able to grow their brand,
mhm,
are able to map the profit and loss account, are able to think about how they affect each line on that. Um, doesn't mean that they are necessarily only driven by the numbers or doing that thing that feels a bit icky.
mm,
Um, would be my first kind of feedback. And I'd also say I personally love the numbers. Um, and not necessarily directly linked. It sounds like maybe what you're experiencing is a very sales driven individual, and therefore someone who's potentially paid and remunerated for that. And your perception around that is that those people that do that thing.
mm,
Um,
mm.
I don't think so, like Joe, that that is a generic thing, but I would always say, what is your definition of success?
Nice.
Because um, money is only one aspect, and having roles with commercial success is only another way.
Love it. Thank you. That's really helpful. I think we're coming towards the end, so this is probably the last one, Abby. But
Mhm.
just to say a big thank you again for the whole hour because you've been so brilliant. But this last one comes in and it says, any advice for when you're completely overwhelmed by life and work and you know you need to make changes, but that just feels like one more thing to do. So does it feel, I'm gonna reflect back on some of the things that you've said today.
Mhm.
For me, based on your words, it feels like it's been one small step. Um, but would you suggest anything else?
I would. So it's in addition to that white sheet of paper exercise, which I always do when I'm overwhelmed. And the reason I bought the Tiger book is so I can map the trend of all the things that seem to keep making me overwhelmed,
Oh, I love that.
is to create certainty. So, we as humans want a combination of certainty and uncertainty. So, in times of feeling overwhelmed or where things feel like slightly out of control, or there's lots of stress being thrown at us that's out of our control, creating some sort of certainty for your brain is really important. So, if I give you an example, I spend time on my own every single day at 6:30. That's the time that I can tag team um, here with childcare. But I sit on my own for half an hour and it's like a ritual. It's in my bedroom, it's with a candle on, it's with a cup of tea. Now, what that's doing is telling my brain that there is something in my life that is grounding, that is core, that is certain. So, what I would always say is create your certainty, create your moment, create your small thing in time. And by doing that consistently, you'll start to calm down a little bit. Your brain will start to feel less like, oh my God, what's going on? And then hopefully you'll have more energy to start doing those little small movements.
Nice. Love that so much. So, so helpful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Abby. And thank you, everyone, as well, for your brilliant questions, your brilliant chat, your support for one another. All of it is just phenomenal. And what a brilliant, brilliant way to start off 2025. So thank you so much, Abby.
You're so
Um,
welcome.
and yeah, a great way to start. I mean, we're back this time next week with another fabulous session this week, and it'd just be absolutely brilliant to see you. Next week's session is all about slowing down with
Oh, with
Emma
Emma.
Harris,
Yeah.
and so I know you know Emma as well, Abby, and it will
Wonderful.
be a sweary, wonderful session. So if that sounds like your kind of bag, then it would be great to see you. But in the meantime, a big, big thank you to Abby. Big, big thank you to all of you, and a big, big thank you to all of our sponsors for enabling us to bring these sessions to you. Hope to see you next week. And in the meantime, we will catch you very, very soon. Take care, everyone. Cheers, Abby.
Thank you.